Happy Friday, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Routing Box Friday Live. I am Jonathan Anthon, your host, and I am really excited today to talk about something that is so important and so overlooked in the NEMT industry, really NEMT software industry. Something that's critical to really making sure that you work so hard to find the right software solutions that fit your needs, and it's a huge investment of time, and obviously you're spending money. But we want to make sure you get the most out of that investment, and we're going to talk today about one of the ways you can do that. So we're going to talk about how you can ensure a successful implementation of your NEMT software. So let's go ahead and dive right in and start talking about this and some of the things that are really critically important that you can do to make sure that your implementation goes well. So the first one, pretty obvious. Choose the right software. It seems really obvious, but it's really a mistake that a lot of people make. I see a lot of NEMT providers, they go choose a limo software or a software intended for plumbers or trucking. And usually that's because you talk to a salesperson and you say, hey, can we do this, this, and this? Because you're looking for maybe 3 things that you're trying to solve. And they say, oh yeah, we can do that. Well, the software is not designed for your business, so they can do it, but to what extent and how effectively can they do it is a big challenge. Even within the software that's designed for NEMT, there are some nuances. So make sure that you are choosing the right software. Also, during that process, ask them about implementation. Getting the software installed and being used properly is critical. Good software is flexible. It's not designed to do a bunch of things just one way. It's built for creativity and flexibility. So when you are having changes happen to your business, or obviously, NEMT is diverse. You may work with only 1 or 2 brokers now, but the companies, as they grow, they're working with 5, 6 brokers or health plans, plus local contracts, plus corporate accounts. There's so many ways that you can generate revenue in this business. It's critical that your software can handle that. So even though you might not be doing it now, having that flexibility is critical later. So if you have a software that's just, hey, here's how you do it, there's no flexibility, and here's your software, and good luck, that's not necessarily going to fit what your business is today or even what you want your business to be. So make sure you ask about implementation and training during the sale. If they say, oh yeah, we do that, that's one thing. You should get a pretty detailed answer. If they're proud of the way they implement the software, they'll tell you all about how they do it. And we'll talk about how we do it with Routing Box towards the end. Second thing, trust the process. Maybe this is your second software if you have one that maybe you don't like or you've outgrown. Maybe it's your third time choosing software. Your software provider implements 3 different just 3 implementations in one day. So this is something that we do all day, every day. There's a process in place for a reason, and it is built to be flexible no matter what your business circumstance is. So trust the process. I know everybody has a way that they envision this going and a way that they want it to happen. Trust your provider. They know how to implement a company like yours. They've worked with it before. They'll know what to do. Trust them. Trust their process. They'll walk you through exactly what needs to happen in order for your implementation to be successful. Number 3, and we're going to spend a little bit of time on this one, supplying thorough answers and documentation. So again, if you're using software that is well constructed and is flexible, you have things like you're going to import your trips. You have different dispatch methods. So are you live dispatching? Are you pre-scheduling? Do you have multiple offices around your service area? Do you have vehicles that are different fleets that are separated based on what kind of service they're offering? You have all these different options and things that might be going on. Your software has to be flexible to be able to handle different things. So if we don't know what your goals are and how your company operates, it's really hard to implement the software the proper way for you. There's not one way to use your software. There's dozens of ways. We want to make sure we choose the best one for you. So we need it to be flexible, so we need to know what's going on. Also, we ask usually for a whole bunch of examples of the files you can get from your brokers and your health plans and billing files. We want all these examples. Well, why? Because we want to make sure that the way that they're built for our system now matches what you're getting. We've had situations where someone works the health plan and you provide one type of service that nobody else is providing. And there's a little code on that import file that indicates that we've never seen before, so that import file doesn't function properly for you. We want to make sure we catch those things before you start using the software. We certainly don't want to have to do it afterwards. Our development team is fantastic. They get things done very, very quickly, but it's much easier for us to get things done ahead of your implementation than try to do it while you're trying to do the software and it's causing problems for you. So we're actually going to head over to the monitor. I want to show you a couple examples of this. So right now, on the monitor, we have a CSV import file here. This is the format for National MedTrans. So this is all the content that comes in when you export your trips from National MedTrans There's all this information here. And you'll see, I mean, you have a lot of different pieces of data. So it's indicating whether it's the first or second leg. You can see, is there a wheelchair? And I mean, if you work with National Med Trends, scroll over, there's a whole bunch more information here. Little codes that go a long way. When we have files like this, we want to look at yours and compare it to what we have and see if there's anything different. We want to make sure that that's all good to go. Now, National Med Trends' file, just because it's a spreadsheet, does not make it anywhere near the same as another company's. So, for example, we'll actually pull up another file here for MTM, and you're going to notice that this import file for MTM is completely different from the structure that National Med Trends was. So we have a whole bunch of different things. So here we're saying, is it a wheelchair, yes or no? Do they have crutches, yes or no? Are there additional passengers? They're giving you a type of vehicle. They're giving you a trip status, which is usually, is it scheduled, S1 to be scheduled, is it canceled, et cetera, et cetera. So you have all these different things, the reason for the trip, which can impact the coding or maybe add a modifier. You have all these different things that could impact what that trip looks like and how you need to execute it. So by producing a file that doesn't just pull off, and we're not just looking at the person's name and their member number, maybe their phone number, the pickup time and address, drop-off time and address, and boom, it's in the software. We're looking at all these details, these little things, to make sure that you have all the trip details you need, not only to execute the trip, but also when it comes time for compliance and record keeping, as well as billing. So those are some good examples of imports and how they can differ, even within the same broker. Just because we work with MTM now, which we do, doesn't mean that your MTM file is exactly the same. So we'll always ask you for an example to try to catch those differences. Let's take a look at some stuff for billing, because that's another example where we really want to see examples to make sure that everything is thorough. So what we're looking at here is a CMS 1500 form. This is a HIPAA standard form for health insurance billing. The electronic version is called 837P. You may have seen that. RoutingBox also produces those. But this is CMS 1500 completed by RoutingBox. Now, depending on your payer, in terms of what information needs to be filled in on this form, it might differ from payer to payer even. So yeah, we produce CMS 1500s, but will it work for your payer? We got to make sure that we're putting the right data on there. And the problem is, if there's too little, obviously the claim is going to be denied. If there's too much, often the claim is denied. So we want to make sure we get this exactly right. So if you're billing with 1500s, we're going to ask you for examples of these to make sure that we're getting it right. We actually have another example of a billing document. We'll go ahead and pull up the paper invoice from RoutingBox. And so this is the kind of a general invoice, kind of if you're sending an invoice to a nursing home or to a rehab clinic or a corporate account where you're providing transportation, and we provide some basic info. I transported Gretchen from this address to this address on this date. Here's the services and rates and the totals. There's additional information that can go on here, like a member number, an authorization number. So what we want to make sure that however you're billing your client now, if you're in QuickBooks making invoices or making them in Excel or Word right now, we want to make sure that whatever information you're sending matches up with what we have, because again, if we can't include everything the payer needs, that's going to lead to a problem later on, and we don't want to have to adjust later. We need to get these things done ahead of time so you're not waiting on your payments. So, when you're working with RoutingBox and presumably other providers as well, we're probably going to ask for a lot of information. We're doing that because we want to make sure that your implementation goes smoothly. We don't want to be difficult. That's not our goal. Our goal is to make this as smooth and easy as possible because, you've probably heard the devil's in the details. Within any software implementation, the devil's absolutely in the details. So we want to make sure that we're collecting all of those details properly. Let's head over to the board here and we can wrap up our last few pieces. So the fourth thing you can do to ensure a successful implementation of your software, ask questions. And that is through and through. Ask questions during your demo. Ask your sales rep about different pieces. If they're doing their job thoroughly, they're going to take notes on what you're asking about and what's important to you. And those notes will probably go over to your implementation manager to make sure that everything is okay. And during your trainings, ask questions. That's going to indicate to your trainer, to your salesperson, to everybody that you're working with, what exactly your needs are and what we need to do to make sure things are successful for you. So if you ask those questions, it goes a long way for them identifying your needs, understanding what we need to do for you so that we can go ahead and execute and make this an awesome experience for you. Piece number 5, this one is critical, value training sessions. We get this all the time where we'll schedule maybe something for implementation planning or schedule training and something comes up and, can we do it tomorrow at 2? The answer 99% of the time is no. right now, I mean, we're booked out over a month for new companies to start training. Those training sessions fill up very, very quickly. So even though we're booked out to, I think July 10th or 17th today, there's a really good chance that next week, Tuesday, that becomes July 24th or July 31st or August 7th. So that's going to move back. We can only do so many of these at a time to do them properly and do them right. So value those training sessions. Make sure you know when they are. Get them on your calendar. Put reminders on your phone. Set up alarms that are going to go up. Whatever you have to do to remember, that is mission critical because rescheduling those training sessions can really push back your implementation quite a bit. It breaks up your training unnecessarily. It really doesn't create a fantastic experience for you. So everybody wants their software usually right away, and we understand that. We understand you want to get going and you're excited about this, and we are too. But so make sure we get those sessions. Make sure those are important and those dates are important to you. Everybody has things come up. We get it. We're going to do our best to be flexible, but the more you can do to make sure you're planning accordingly, the more we can do to make sure your implementation goes flawlessly. Last piece, involving the right people. So every company, you can't have everybody in the company on a training, obviously. You have to still operate your business. So we certainly understand that. Working with your trainer, they'll understand kind of which people are performing which tasks in your organization, so we can make sure the right people are on the right trainings. But direct training tends to be most effective if we're working directly with the people that need to use the software. So the companies that we've seen most successful, you have someone that's a leader of the business, whether it be the owner, operations manager, whatever it be, kind of leading the charge. And then on the dispatching training, that's where your dispatchers are. And on the scheduling training, whoever's doing the scheduling. And the billing training, the billers. But having both that leadership and the person who's actually executing on the training really goes a long way. And the more people we can have on there to kind of double your efforts and have backups to perform things, the better off everybody is. So that way, if something happens that your employment situation changes within your organization, you have multiple people that can step in and take over and help out. The great news is, for Routing Bucks at least, we have the support team 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. so we can get you back up and going pretty quickly should something happen. But, obviously I'm sure you want to avoid that and make it as smooth and seamless as possible should something change within your organization. And it's just good to have kind of more people knowing what's going on so that people will pick up different things. And then we can move things forward smoothly and easily for you. So if you are interested in learning more about how our implementation process works, obviously if you're going through it, you understand. But we'll go through that in a little bit. For those of you that are already Routing Box customers, we'll give you guys an opportunity to sign off now. If you have any questions, give us a call, 716-202-9121, or info@routingbox.com. Both of those are also in the title, so you can just touch them and be able to get a hold of us quickly and easily. For those of you who are not Routing Box customers who want to learn more about what our implementation looks like, let's dive in here. So essentially, we go through the sales process. We get to know you however we come across you, whether it's you came to us on our website, you called us, you met us at a trade show, we reached out to you. So we engage, we do our demo, right? So we show you the product. We ask you a whole bunch of questions so we can start to learn how Routing Box will work for you. We go through our product demo. After going back and forth, probably doing multiple demos, solving some problems, we come to the point where we're going to fill out paperwork and electronically send that paperwork to you sign. That's where the magic starts. So after that happens, we're going to schedule kind of a planning call, or pre-implementation planning and information collection call. That usually happens with your sales rep and or one of our operations specialists. So that what's going to happen on that call is we go through and we have some very specific information we want to capture, and we're going to look for maybe other pieces of information that we need to capture. So we're going to ask about your billing processes. We're going to ask about how you route your vehicles now, how you communicate with your drivers, what accounts you're working with, how do you get your trips from them, how do you bill your trips from them, what compliance documents are required, what other problems do you face. And we're going to go through and kind of ask all those questions and really make sure we thoroughly understand how your operation works from the birth of a trip all the way through completion, and then compliance and documentation and record keeping on the back end. So we're collecting all that information, and that kind of goes back to where I talked about supplying those thorough answers and supplying thorough documentation. The better that call goes, generally the better the implementation goes. Like I said, we're also going to look for other things that maybe are off the beaten path, but if it comes up, it's a good thing. So I'll actually bring up one we just did in the past couple of days. Won't mention the name of the company, but it's a company out on the West Coast, and they're doing Medicaid trips. And with Medicaid, the way it works with them is the passenger or the provider actually comes directly to book the transportation with them. they're responsible for checking the authorization, providing the service, and then going back to Medicaid and billing the trip. And we had the biller on the call, and we were talking through it, and it turns out the biller does the authorizations. So the trip is booked with their dispatcher / call taker. Then it goes in a report over to the billing manager, who takes that report, checks the authorizations, and reports back. So that was something that we caught on to that, well, we want to take a look at that report because we want to see what information is included in there so we can make sure that we can give that billing manager very easy access to that very same information, whether it be in the software or maybe someone else produces that report for her and emails it over to her, prints it out, whatever it might be. But we want to make sure we keep that process seamless. So those are the little things that, when we're going through this and you're openly sharing what's going on with us, we can find those little things to make that nice and easy during the implementation process. So after we do that pre-implementation information collection, we send your account over to our implementation team. They will build your account, they're going to send you an invoice for your deposit, and then once that deposit is paid, they will go through and review your notes and all the documents that we've attached to see if there's any further questions that they have or anything they need to clarify. Might have some short back and forth there to make sure we're on the same page, then we'll do a handoff call. And that call is between your trainer, your sales representative, and you, just kind of answering a few more questions about your operation, maybe button some things up that are detailed that they want to cover on the phone with you, and then we'll go ahead and schedule your training sessions. So that's where we're going to deliver that information, when you'll start training, what you should expect, what time of day is best for you, who needs to be involved, details like that, so we can make sure that we get the best training schedule possible together for you. After that, we'll communicate those trainings to you, we'll give you reminder calls, etc. to make sure everything goes smoothly. But you'll start your training, you'll participate with our trainer. There's 5 sessions over the course of a few weeks, 1 to 2 hours each. We give you one topic, help you become an expert on it, give you time to practice, give you some homework to work on. You get full access to our support team during that time. Even though you're not being billed for service, you still get that access so that we can make sure that implementation goes nice and smoothly. So after the first subject, then you move on to the next step. So first subject, usually back-end setup and rates and coding and things like that. Second is scheduling trips. So how are we going to get the trips into the software? And once you do some practice there, then we move on to operations, getting them out to the drivers using the mobile app, etc. Then it moves on from there. So each session is very targeted in terms of what it's covering. So we can make sure that the right people are on those sessions. That's critical. And then also that you're an expert on that specific piece of the software and how your company is going to use it before we move on. So that kind of segmented approach we found is really fantastic for making sure that you're an expert rather than just trying to cram it all into one day or a couple sessions and going with information overload. So again, hopefully some of you that are pending implementation have watched this. Hopefully you've got some great information out of this so that you can ensure a successful implementation. Some of you that are maybe kind of close and making a decision on if you want to go with RoutingBox, hopefully you'll learn a little bit more about what's coming next for you after you decide to move forward. And those of you that are considering RoutingBox, hopefully you've seen that implementation is very important. It's something we really spend quite a bit of time on to make sure it goes right. So that is all I have for this week. Thank you so much for watching another edition of RoutingBox Friday Live. We hope everybody has an awesome weekend, and we will see you next time.